The twin suns of Kareth 9 hung weakly in the sky, their fading light falling over a ruined city. Once, the markets here had sung with color and noise, but now only the wind moved between broken towers. The air smelled of dust and hunger. Among the ruins walked a mother, her small child in her arms. His face thin, his eyes too tired to cry. Her name was Sarai, and her world had ended long before the suns began to die. She had sold everything she owned, her clothes, her tools, her pride. Now only one thing remained, a small glowing gem tied around her neck. It was a relic from her wedding day, the last reminder of the man who had never returned from the mines. The gem shimmered faintly as if remembering better days. Her child stirred weakly, whispering, "Mama, I'm hungry." Her heart broke again the way it did every day. Across the dunes she could see a faint light, the human relief outpost. Rumor said the humans gave food to anyone who asked, but others warned it was a trap. Humans help no one, the old ones had said. They only take. But Sarai had no choice. She began the long walk toward the light, every step heavy with fear and hope. When she reached the outpost gate, the guards looked at her in silence. Her gray skin was cracked, her clothes torn, and the child in her arms was barely breathing. One guard muttered, "Another beggar," the other said, "Let her in. Captain Ward wants all refugees processed." The heavy door slid open with a hiss, and Sarai stepped into a place she could not have imagined. Inside, hundreds of refugees crowded the metal corridors. Alien voices whispered in a dozen languages, some cursing, some praying. Humans in gray uniforms moved among them, handing out ration cubes and scanning IDs. Sarai had no ID, no papers, nothing, only the gem. She moved slowly to the front desk, where a tall man in a dark uniform stood behind a counter. His badge read Captain Elias Ward. When he looked at her, his face was unreadable. Sarai placed the glowing gem on the counter, her hand trembling, her voice cracked as she said, "Please, my child is hungry, take this. It is all I have." The room fell silent, every eye turning toward her. Humans paused. Aliens stopped whispering. The air itself seemed to freeze. Elias glanced at the gem, then at the child, then back at Sarai. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the desperate courage keeping her standing. He reached out and gently pushed the gem back toward her. "Keep it," he said quietly. "You're one of us now." For a moment, Sarai could not understand his words. Around her, murmurs rose. Shock, disbelief, even anger. A traitor behind her hissed, "Humans don't give. They only take," but Elias's calm eyes never left hers. He called for a medic, who came running and took the child gently from her arms. "Food, water, shelter," Elias ordered. "Give them everything they need." Sarai stood frozen, staring at the gem that still glowed softly in her hand. Tears blurred her vision. Her legs shaking beneath her, she whispered, "Why? Why would you do this?" Elias answered simply, "Because once we were hungry too." As she was led away to the medical bay, Sarai looked back one last time. The human captain was already speaking to his officers. Calm and steady, she didn't know it yet. But this moment would change everything. For her child, and for an entire galaxy. Outside, the suns of Kareth 9 sank below the horizon, casting long shadows over the refugee camp, and somewhere deep within the human outpost, the gem pulsed brighter, as if it knew its story had only just begun. Sarai woke to the sound of distant engines, the hum of machines, and soft voices echoing through metal walls. She was lying on a narrow bed inside the human medical bay, her child sleeping beside her, his small chest rising and falling gently. For the first time in months, he looked peaceful. She turned her head and saw human doctors moving between rows of cots, tending to the wounded and the weak. Aliens of many kinds lay beside humans, some silent, some whispering thanks, others glaring with suspicion. Outside, the sky was red from dust storms, and the outpost stood like a fragile island in a sea of ruin. Refugees gathered near the ration line, waiting for food and clean water. The humans called this place Camp Haven, but to many, it was known as the Camp of Shadows, a place where hope and fear lived together. Every corner held whispers. The humans are planning something. They only help to gain control. They'll abandon us once we're useful. But none of that mattered to Sarai, not yet. Not when her son finally had a meal later that day. Captain Elias Ward walked through the camp. Inspecting the lines and giving orders, his soldiers respected him. But they didn't always understand him. Some whispered, "Why waste supplies on aliens?" Others said, Because he's seen war and he knows what mercy means. When he reached Sarai's tent, he paused, watching her silently for a moment before speaking. "You should rest," he said, his voice calm. "Your child will recover soon." Sarai nodded. Unsure how to respond, she wanted to thank him. But words felt too small. That night, the camp grew quiet. Only the wind and the hum of generators breaking the silence. Sarai sat near the edge of the outpost, watching the lights of the human patrols move through the dark. Nearby, 2 alien refugees whispered to each other, their voices tense. "They say the humans are hiding a weapon shipment," one hissed. "They're using us as bait." Sarai frowned, remembering Elias's gentle tone. The way he looked at her child, could it all be a lie? Her thoughts tangled between gratitude and fear, between hope and doubt as she turned away. She saw Elias again, alone, standing near the communication tower, staring at the stars. His face looked older in the dim light, not cruel, just tired. She gathered her courage and walked closer. "Captain," she said softly, "why did you help us? You don't even know my people." He looked at her for a long moment before replying. "Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it," he said. "We all carry debts of kindness, Sarai, even across species." His words lingered in her heart like a quiet spark. But peace never lasted long in this galaxy. At dawn, the alarms blared across the camp, red lights flashing over the walls. Soldiers ran toward the gates, shouting orders. Elias's voice came over the intercom. "All civilians to shelters. This is not a drill." Through the dust clouds, Sarai saw dark shapes descending from the sky. Syndicate gunships, the same symbol that once marked the mines where she had been enslaved. Her blood froze, memories flooding back, the screams, the chains, the endless nights. The syndicate broadcast filled the air, a cold metallic voice echoing through speakers. "All alien refugees under human protection are to be executed. Surrender or be destroyed." Panic spread like wildfire. Aliens screamed, some ran, others hid. Sarai held her child close, her heart pounding. She looked toward the command tower where Elias stood. Calm and unshaken, he turned on the comm and replied, "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Human Coalition. You will not harm anyone here." The syndicate ship hovered above, engines roaring like thunder. "Then you will die with them," the voice replied. Elias shut off the channel and turned to his men. "Prepare defenses, and protect the civilians," he ordered, his tone firm. He met Sarai's eyes across the courtyard, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Trust. As the first explosions echoed in the distance, Sarai whispered to her child, "Stay strong, my little one. We've survived worse," but deep down she knew this was only the beginning. The shadows of war had returned, and once again, survival would test the meaning of humanity itself. The night sky burned with fire and smoke. Human fighters streaked through the clouds, chasing syndicate drones that rained plasma over the desert. Explosions shook the ground, sending waves of heat through the refugee camp. Sarai crouched beside her child in the shelter, clutching him close, the air thick with fear and dust. Outside, the humans fought fiercely, their shouts echoing through the comms. "Sector 3 breached," one soldier yelled. "Hold the line," Elias's voice commanded over the speakers. Firm but calm, his words carried strength, even through the chaos, but not everyone in the camp shared his courage. Among the refugees, panic turned into whispers, and whispers turned into betrayal. 3 alien traitors huddled in the shadows, eyes darting toward the human command center. "The syndicate will spare us if we help them," one said. "We give them the humans' location, and we live." Fear had swallowed their honor. They activated a stolen comm beacon, sending out a signal through the storm. They didn't know it yet, but that single signal would bring death closer than they imagined. In the command room, Elias stared at the radar, frowning. "Something's wrong," he muttered. "They found us too easily." His second officer, Lieutenant Harris, replied, "Could be a leak." "Sir?" Elias's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing toward the refugee quarter, but he didn't issue an arrest, not yet. "Lock down the perimeter," he ordered. "No one leaves or enters without clearance." Meanwhile, Sarai sat in the dark, trying to calm her child. The child whispered, "Mama, are the humans going to lose?" She brushed his hair gently and said, "Humans don't lose. They protect." But even as she said the words, part of her heart trembled. She had seen human mercy, but now she was about to see human fury. Outside, gunfire echoed again, closer this time. Syndicate troops landed near the east wall, advancing through the smoke. The air filled with shouts, laser bursts, and the metallic scent of burning fuel. Sarai peeked from the shelter's slit window and saw Elias leading his soldiers, his rifle flashing in the dark. He moved like a man who had fought 100 battles, fearless, relentless. He wasn't fighting for glory. He was fighting for every life behind those walls. Then the betrayal unfolded. The same aliens who sent the signal slipped out of the shadows, waving white cloths as they approached the Syndicate commander. They pointed toward the outpost and said, "The humans are hiding civilians in the lower bay. Destroy it, and the camp will fall." The Syndicate leader sneered. "You will be rewarded." But before they could move further, a rifle shot rang out. One traitor fell instantly. The others froze in terror. From the dunes, Elias stepped forward, weapon still smoking, his eyes cold. "I warned you," he said quietly. "There is no safety in betrayal." The Syndicate opened fire. Elias dove behind cover, returning shots with precision and fury. His soldiers joined him, a wall of light cutting through the darkness. Sarai watched from afar, her heart pounding. She could have stayed hidden, but something inside her refused. This was her fight too. She handed her child to a nurse, whispering, "Stay here no matter what happens." Then she grabbed a discarded plasma pistol from the ground and ran toward the outer barricade. The battle raged through the night. Humans and aliens fought side by side, the air alive with chaos and courage. Sarai found herself beside a human soldier, barely 20, trembling as he reloaded. "Why are you here?" he shouted. She replied, "Because this time, I'm not running." Together they held the line as Syndicate drones descended, firing red bolts across the field in the command tower. Elias saw the refugee joining the defense. "Who is that?" Harris asked. Elias recognized her instantly. "That's Sarai," he said, a faint smile crossing his face. "Then we fight as one." Hours passed. The sky lit with constant flashes. The humans were outnumbered, but their will was stronger than steel. As dawn began to rise, the Syndicate fleet adjusted its position in orbit. Preparing a full bombardment, Elias's communicator buzzed. "Sir, shields won't hold another hit." He looked toward the east, where Sarai was still fighting, her gem glinting against the light. Something about that glow caught his attention, a strange pulsing energy deep within it. He didn't know yet that the true secret of the gem was about to change the fate of everyone there. The sun rose red over the desert, and with it came silence, the calm before the next storm. The battle was far from over, and hope was hanging by a thread. But in that fragile dawn, humanity and aliens stood shoulder to shoulder, no longer strangers but survivors. Smoke filled the morning sky, turning the horizon into a red storm. The ground trembled beneath the Syndicate's bombardment, each explosion shaking the metal walls of the human outpost. Inside the command room, alarms blared and lights flickered. Lieutenant Harris shouted over the noise, "Shields are down to 30%, Captain. One more direct hit and we're done." Elias Ward stood tall amid the chaos, his uniform torn, face streaked with dust and sweat. "Evacuate the non-combatants," he ordered. "We hold the line until they're clear." Outside, Sarai moved through the smoke, helping the wounded, her arms trembling from exhaustion. She found a fallen human soldier pinned under debris, his breathing shallow. Without hesitation, she pulled at the metal, ignoring the pain in her own hands. The soldier coughed weakly, whispering, "Why would you help me?" Sarai answered softly, "Because your captain helped me." That was the moment she realized. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting for something greater. As she stood, the small gem around her neck pulsed brighter than before. A strange hum filled the air, low and powerful. The wounded soldier's scanner beeped wildly, its screen flashing warnings. "What is that?" he gasped. Sarai looked down, confusion in her eyes. "It's just a relic from my world." But the gem's light grew stronger, casting blue waves that rippled across the sand. Back in the control room, sensors began detecting abnormal readings. "Captain," Harris said urgently, "energy surge near the east barricade. It's off the charts." Elias turned toward the monitor, seeing the feed. Sarai standing amid the wreckage, the gem blazing like a star. He recognized the same artifact she had offered him days ago. "That thing isn't just jewelry," he whispered. "It's technology." He rushed outside with a team of engineers, taking cover as artillery shells rained down. When he reached Sarai, the ground was glowing beneath her feet, the gem vibrating like a heartbeat. Sarai, listen to me, Elias shouted over the noise. That gem, it's not a crystal, it's an energy core. One your ancestors might have used. Sarai looked terrified. I don't understand, I never knew. Elias knelt beside her, studying the light. It's pure quantum energy. It could boost our shield generator, but it could also kill you if it overloads. Another explosion hit nearby, sending shockwaves across the camp. Sarai looked toward the shelter where her child hid, then back at Elias. Will it save them? She asked. Elias nodded slowly. Yes, but you'll have to stabilize it manually, from inside the power core. Sarai's breath trembled, fear and courage battling in her chest. She looked at the gem once more, then at Elias. You called me one of you, she said quietly. So let me fight like one. Before Elias could protest, she pulled the gem from her neck and ran toward the reactor chamber. He shouted after her, Sarai, wait! But the roar of engines drowned his voice. Inside the chamber, engineers were already evacuating, the reactor shuddering under power loss. Sarai placed the gem into the open conduit, light flooding the room. Manual override engaged, the AI announced. Warning, unstable energy detected. She pressed her hand against the glowing core, her body trembling as the power coursed through her veins. The light spread across the walls, through the cables, and into the base shield outside. The Syndicate unleashed their final bombardment, hundreds of plasma strikes falling like meteors. But when the blasts hit, a brilliant blue dome flared over the camp. The shields restored, stronger than ever. The humans and refugees watched in awe as the energy held firm, reflecting every strike. Captain, it's working, Harris shouted. The shield's at 200% capacity. Elias didn't celebrate, his eyes fixed on the reactor. Sarai's in there, he whispered. She's the one holding it. Inside, Sarai's vision blurred, her skin glowing faintly from the overload. Memories of her world flashed before her eyes. Her husband, her child's first cry, the mines, the hunger, the despair. And then she saw Elias's face, his words echoing. You're one of us now. A tear slipped down her cheek as she whispered, Then I'll protect them. All of them. The energy reached its peak and a shockwave burst outward. The Syndicate ships in orbit were caught in the blast, their hulls tearing apart under the force. The entire fleet disintegrated into fragments of burning light across the sky. Moments later, the battlefield fell silent. The storm cleared, leaving only smoke and the faint hum of the surviving shield. Elias ran into the reactor chamber, his heart pounding. The gem lay shattered, its light fading. Sarai's body rested beside it, her hand still on the control panel. Peaceful as if asleep, Elias knelt beside her, whispering, You did it. You saved us all. He closed her eyes gently, his voice breaking. Outside, the survivors looked to the heavens, where the wreckage of the Syndicate fleet burned like falling stars. That night, the humans buried her under the twin suns of Kareth 9. They marked her grave with the words, Here lies Sarai of the Lost World, human by heart, hero by choice. The twin suns rose again over Kareth 9, their light softer now, touching the sand with golden warmth. The battlefield that once echoed with explosions was quiet. Only the wind whispered through the ruins. Smoke curled gently toward the sky, fading like the ghosts of war. In the center of the human outpost, a new flag fluttered, the crest of the Human Refugee Coalition. Beneath it, humans and aliens worked side by side, rebuilding shelters, carrying supplies, sharing food. The war was over, but the memory of it would live forever. Captain Elias Ward stood at the edge of the camp, watching the sunrise, his uniform torn, his eyes tired but calm. Behind him, construction drones hummed, repairing walls and towers. Children, human and alien, played together in the dust, their laughter bright against the quiet morning. For the first time in years, the world didn't feel like it was dying. It felt like it was breathing again. He turned when he heard a small voice. It was Sarai's child, holding a small ration pack in his hands. The boy looked up and asked softly, Captain, when will my mother wake up? Elias's throat tightened. He knelt down to the boy's level. She's watching us now, he said gently, pointing to the sky. And she's proud of you. The boy smiled faintly, his eyes full of light and innocence. He didn't fully understand, but somehow he felt safe. Later that day, a group of engineers approached Elias with news. "Sir, the gem's remaining energy stabilized. We can use it to power a new beacon," one of them said. Elias nodded slowly. "Then build it not as a weapon but as a signal." He walked with them to the reactor site where the shattered gem still glowed faintly under the dust. "Let it shine," he said quietly, as a symbol of what she gave. By nightfall, the beacon was complete. Its light stretched high into the sky, blue and bright, reaching the stars. Across nearby systems, ships and colonies saw the signal. For many, it was a message of hope. For others, a call to unity. It said something simple, yet powerful. Humanity still stands, and so do all who believe in peace. Weeks passed. The camp grew into a city. Aliens who once feared humans now worked beside them. The humans shared their knowledge, building farms and schools. The refugees shared their wisdom, teaching old songs and forgotten ways. Together they named the new city Sarai's Rest. In honor of the woman who had saved them all, one evening, Elias sat alone by the memorial stone at the city's center. The inscription glowed softly under the stars. Sarai of the lost world, human by heart, hero by choice. He placed a small flower beside it, then whispered, "You reminded us what being human truly means." As he looked toward the horizon, the blue beacon reflected in his eyes. It no longer symbolized war but rebirth. Far above, among the drifting remains of the Syndicate fleet, the light of the beacon shimmered across space. It traveled far beyond Careth 9, carrying a message to every world that once doubted humanity, a message born not from power but from compassion. That day, the galaxy learned a truth it would never forget, that sometimes one act of kindness can save more than a life. It can save the soul of a universe. As night fell, children gathered around a campfire, listening to the elders tell stories of how a starving mother once traded her last gem for food, and how a human captain gave her something far greater, a place to belong. And in every story, the last line was always the same. "Because once, we were hungry too."